Uncovering chemistry. Bonds as told through Cat Analogies. Chemical bonds can be defined as the strong force of attraction together in a molecule. They occur because atoms with incomplete outer electron shells are unstable. By forming bonds, atoms completely fill their outer shells and stabilize. To make an analogy, it's almost like how cats form relationships with other cats because they need company from time to time. Now, in every chemical bond, there's also the different types of bonds. The different types of chemical bonds are metallic, ionic, and covalent. Now we're going to discuss about the different types of chemical bonds. Metallic bonds, as indicated by the name, it happens between metallic atoms and packed together in a giant lattice. In a chemical bond, the outer electrons separate from their atoms and delocalize. The atoms turn into positive ions, mind you, not negative. And these positive ions are attracted to these electrons from the atoms. This giant lattice is the structure for the metallic bonds, and consisting of millions of ions. They're mostly solid, with the exception of mercury, which is liquid. In terms of properties, this metallic bonds have high boiling points and melting points. Just get an image of a huge cat that gets angry and sad easily in your head. That's what metallic bond points are like, since the bonds are giant structures and all atoms are so strongly bonded that it takes quite much more than a ton of energy to break them, hence making the boiling and melting point high in the case of metallic bonds. The second one would be conductivity. Since metals can conduct electricity because the electrons are free to move anywhere in the structure to carry a charge. This analogy would be a ball of yarn actually put to good use because the cat that plays with it doesn't have that strong of a hold on the yarn. The other properties would be solubility. The metal bonds don't dissolve easily really in water because breaking them takes too much energy, as we explained right over at the point, and they're having too much energy. Think of it like trying to give a bath to a cat that is just not having it, otherwise disliking it and hating it. The strength of a metallic bond in this case would be comparable to a cat that's ridiculously large but agile. In some cases, that's what metallic bonds are like. See, metallic bonds in strength are hard to break, but they're malleable, and also they're ductile because the delocalized electrons in these atoms leave room for metallic bonds to move when hit. Also, just like you try to get trained cats, so they become stronger. You can also strengthen metal by, and like cats, you need to train them, right? And so you can strengthen, in this case, metallic bonds can be strengthened metal by adding another element when the metal is molten. That's also called alloying. The last one would be density. Because the atoms are packed together tightly, metallic bonds in this case are dense, kind of like a cat with a really, really thick fur. Isn't that adorable? Examples of metallic bonds include silver, platinum, gold and brass, and steel. Now, the second bond, ionic bonds, happens to metal and non-metal atoms. Electrons are transferred from metal to non-metal, and positive ions, to negative ions, are formed. These oppositely charged ions attract each other from and form a bond. Ionic bonds are structured in giant lattices and consisting of, again, millions of ions. They're all solid in this case. Now, for the properties. The melting and boiling points can be thinking of a cranky cat, just like in a metallic bond. High melting and boiling points. The second property would be conductivity. Ionic substances can't conduct electricity when solid because the ions are too close to each other. It's like when a bottle of yarn can't be used at all because the cat in this case holds on it way too tightly. However, when liquid ionic substances in some instances, when liquid ionic substances can conduct, because the ions are able to break free of the lattice and carry a charge, like how you can distract a cat from playing with a ball of yarn. Sorry, I didn't have it in here. Solubility. In this case, ionic substances do dissolve in water, and molecules have an electric charge that attracts less. It's like a cat voluntarily getting in a bath because there's a rubber duck or bubbles in it. Distraction. The strength of a ionic bond can be described as a cat that looks super tough, but it's really have a soft spot in the inside. Likewise, ionic substances are hard but brittle. When a force is applied, ions with like charges join together and repulse, cause the lattice to shatter all over the place, like a window in this case. Examples of ionic bonds include magnesium chloride, sodium oxide, potassium, and lead sulfide. The last bond that we're going to discuss about is the covalent bonds. Covalent bonds only happen between non-metal atoms. Electrons are simply shared between the atoms. There are two types of covalent structures: simple molecular, in which there are only a few atoms, and the state at room temperature is usually liquid or gas, and giant, in which there are millions of ions. Where's the ions? Ah, there we go. And the state at room temperature is solid. So sorry, it's a little weird in here. However, the properties of covalent bonds can be described as with higher melting and boiling points, while the simple molecular substances have low points because the forces holding the molecules are weak in this case and easily broken. Doesn't take much of force to break it. Think of it as a huge cat with a bad temper versus a tiny calm kitten. Sorry, I think that's why he ran away. Conductivity. Covalent bonds don't necessarily conduct electricity because all outer electrons are fixed in shells. It's like when a cat takes a fur. Don't conduct electricity. It's like a cat that takes firm hold of a ball of yarn with both front paws, disabling the ball to move around. There is an exception to this though. Graphite has free electrons between the atom layers. Excuse me, were the atom layers? Never mind. But anyway, graphite has free electrons between the atom layers, making conductivity possible. Solubility. They have giant covalent bonds which generally don't dissolve in solvents. And think of a cat like a cat that refuses to take a bath. Meanwhile, simple molecular substances are soluble in water but soluble in other solvents. Think of it, a cat that wouldn't want to bathe but is fine with swimming in a lake. The strength of a covalent bond can be described from a giant structured covalent substances are on. When they break when enough force is applied. In this case, not the force. The force that every Star Wars fans think about. Think of it like a huge but weak cat. Meanwhile, the simple molecular covalent substances are gaseous. And think of it like a cat with a really fuzzy fur that really just blows over the whole area. The density of the giant substances are dense because the atoms are packed close together, while simple structures have lower densities, and because the weak forces between the molecules can't pull molecules tightly together. This can be less likely described with a long hair, short hair cat situation. Examples of covalent bonds could include hydrogen, water, methane, ammonia, and carbon dioxide. That's all from us. Hopefully, all of our weird cat expectations, just as the one right in the picture, help you understand your chemical bonds a little bit further.